Welcome to episode number 2 of Women with a Vision, a podcast series hosted by EyeCare Partners focused on women in eye care. I'm Dr. Terri Gossard, National Director of Clinical Integration for EyeCare Partners, and I'll be today's episode moderator. We have 2 amazing participants that I'm excited to share with you today. First of all, we have Dr. Constance Okeke. Connie has over 2 decades of glaucoma experience. She is a highly regarded cataract surgeon and a world leader in microinvasive glaucoma surgery, or MIGS. Among her many pioneering accomplishments in treating glaucoma and cataracts, she was the first of the Hampton Roads area to offer the eye stent, the first in the country to combine trabecular MIGS glaucoma surgery with femtosecond laser in cataract surgery, and she wrote her first book called The Building Blocks of Trabecular Surgery. Currently, she works as an assistant professor of ophthalmology at Eastern Virginia Medical School and is the lead glaucoma specialist and cataract surgeon at Virginia Eye Consultants and EyeCare Partners practice. Thank you for taking your time to sit down with us today, Dr. Okeke.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Also joining us is Ms. Nivine Woods. She is the Chief Marketing Officer of EyeCare Partners, the nation's leading provider of clinically integrated eye care. With over 20 years of global and U.S. experience in commercial industry roles across pharmaceuticals and medical devices at Alcon, Abbott, and Johnson & Johnson, Nivine is now leading the marketing organization at EyeCare Partners, a network of over 300 ophthalmologists and 700 optometrists. In her spare time, Nivine is also the president-elect of the Ophthalmic World Leaders, or OWL, an organization dedicated to promoting and developing diverse leadership to advance ophthalmic innovation and patient care. Thank you for joining us, Nivine.
Thanks for having me, Terri.
All right, so we're here today to talk about networking. And it is often said that networking or having a strong network is key to career advancement. But it's not always clear what networking really is or how you do it. And for those who are early in your career, it also might seem a little bit intimidating. So in this episode, we'll talk about how to get started with networking, the value of networking in the eye care industry, and we'll get insights from Dr. Okeke and Nivine Woods about the role that networking has played in each of their careers. And maybe I'll chime in a little bit too. So let's start with talking a little bit more about each of you. And we read the bio, and that's things that people can look up on the internet and find out about you. But I'm just curious, as you were hearing that, are there things that we didn't share that you think is important for doctors to understand? And also, during that thought process, think about how networks have helped you in your career advancement along the way. Connie, we're going to start with you first.
Sure. When it comes to networking, it's definitely had a major impact on my career path. You had asked some of the things that you didn't say in the bio that we might mention and how they might relate with networking. I have a really strong passion for education. I think it stemmed back from my upbringing. My father was, a professor in biochemistry, turned medical student, then emergency room physician. My mom was a PhD in epidemiology and VA hospital head of education and training. So I think that my interest and desire to be involved in education stemmed from them. And I have a passion for glaucoma. I just am excited about glaucoma ever since I started in college and research in glaucoma. It just never left. And I tried other paths to see if maybe there were other interests, but I just kept coming back to glaucoma. And so with education, I enjoy the learning myself. And then when I learn something, I enjoy kind of analyzing and dissecting it and then sharing that with other people, especially if it's done something positive for my patient population or myself in terms of how I treat and come up with options to treat our patients. And so I think that part of the reason why networking has been really influential in my experience is that I lean on the idea of collaboration. Education is something that we all can share. I mean, we're in the area of medicine and we have to learn new things. And when we treat people, we have to teach new things to them. And there's this ongoing thing about, learning and sharing and learning and sharing. And so when networking, when I think about when it first started is when I was, like say in school, you start networking when you have mentors. These are people who are training you, and you're leaning to them to help guide you and give you advice. And you start your pathway. Sometimes they help you go into what direction of medicine you might go into. And the networking for me started there. And then continuing with those networking, you go into medicine and then you start to use different products. And then I started to network with industry. Sometimes industry was involved with programs that they sponsored, maybe scholarships or research programs. And so you start to have some integration with them there. When in the real world setting now in practice, certain devices that you may use. You talked before about my MIGS journey or being involved with MIGS. I was an early adopter because I saw a problem with the traditional glaucoma surgeries, and there was a certain area of people that it was too intense for, and wanting to have something else to offer them when medicines and lasers didn't work, and MIGS was a solution. And it started with, for me, with trabectome. And I was so excited about this technology that was having such an impact on my patients in a positive way and minimizing the risk and minimizing certain potential complications, or at least extending the life of their journey in terms of what treatments we could use. And the company that developed that device, I learned from them. They trained me on how to use the device, and then was excited about it. I brought that technology to the Hampton Roads area and I trained other doctors. I was so excited about it that I decided to write a book because I felt like I found this thing that was, the next thing from sliced bread. Just you wanted to share it because it just worked really well. And so the networking started with industry there and just wanting to help teach and train and be involved, and then it just built from there. And so I think that the with networking and then industry, it's a shared desire with a shared mission to try to help improve patient outcomes, help to figure out what works well and also what doesn't work well. I think having very honest conversations is very important with networking. And then also other passions. So not just for teaching for doctors, but teaching patients. And so other organizations like Glaucoma Research Foundation, Prevent Blindness, American Glaucoma Society, all of those networking um, places where you can just kind of start to have shared interests and then just keep talking about how you can collaborate and how you can work together and show your passion, show your interest, and it just grows from there.
No, I think that's great. I love the education piece. I think as doctors, we are educators. My background, I came to it. My undergrad degree actually is in secondary education, and the joke is that a student taught seventh grade science got scared straight and went right to optometry school. So yeah, so I appreciate those comments. Naveen, how about yourself? Certainly, you've developed a vast network across optometry and ophthalmology. What are some things that I didn't tell the audience about you, and how do you think networks have played a part in that?
So I can honestly say that I am who I am today. I am where I am today because of a vast network of amazing people. It really started with my parents. I'm a PharmD. I'm a pharmacist by background because my father was a pharmacist. And as soon as I graduated pharmacy school, I followed in the footsteps of my own mother, who was a pharmaceutical executive, the first woman actually to carry a bag in Egypt. I was born and raised in Egypt. And so certainly that upbringing shaped a lot of my thinking and career ambitions. And then since I graduated pharmacy school, I had the privilege and the blessing to work for three amazing organizations, Abbott, Alcon, and J&J. And in the 20 years, I have had some amazing mentors and some amazing role models that I have looked up to, and I learned so much from all of them. And then, like Connie was alluding to, when you're in a commercial role, you work with surgeons, you work with KOLs, you work with optometrists, you learn so much from them, you build networks that way. And certainly they impact a lot of my business decisions, a lot of the innovation roadmaps, and a lot of the development of products and technologies. Um, Shortly after I started working, I quickly realized that, yeah, you need your skills and expertise. You have to know what you're doing, but connections and curiosity play a very crucial role in achieving your goals. Now, one thing people don't know about me is I'm actually shy. I know, Terry, you won't believe that, but sometimes it wasn't that easy. And as I look back, honestly, if there is one thing that I should have done differently, and that would be my advice to my son, is you should be a little bit more intentional when you develop and build those networks.
All right. Well, I like that. And also, I was raised by a pharmacist as well. My mother is a pharmacist. She went back to school when I was, goodness, like in seventh grade. And I remember she was studying for exams and she asked me the difference between a proton, neutron, and electron. And I thought, oh, Mom, this is going to be a long haul. But she did it. It was great. And she had her own pharmacy for many years where I worked during optometry school, which is why I passed pharm. All right. All that being
I was going
said,
to say, real quick though, because you
yeah,
remind me, like pharmacy, business school, all of that is wonderful. You know, that's kind of our ticket to play. But as I think about business, honestly, Terry, business is a human enterprise. I remember my mother telling me that it is driven and determined by people. That's really at the end how we win in business.
I love that. I love that. And you know, the question that I had up next was, how do you think networking has benefited you? And I think you're onto something there, Naveen. It's you know, I like that your degree, your education is your ticket, your entry to play, but then it's what you do with that and how you leverage it with the people that you meet, starting with your patients and you know everyone from patient to industry and everything in between. How could can you guys think about, can you point to something in your careers that you know was a result of the networking that you had done, maybe even just in as a student, or then is it early in your career? What was something that happened just because you were in the right room at the right time?
Hmm.
And that's a lot. So we'll start with you, Connie, and not to put you on the spot.
Right place at the right time. Well, I mentioned that early on in my career, I was very much involved in the Student National Medical Association, and I was also very much involved in research. And I remember being involved in the Rab Venable research program that happens annually, one of the annual NMA conference, National Medical Association conference. And I remember one year participating, and I was actually blessed to be elected or selected as the winner for the competition, and it was sponsored by Alcon. And a number of those people that I met then at the it was in Hawaii, the conference was in Hawaii. A number of people I met then I continued to know and see later on. Now the other thing about industry, sometimes people might switch from one company to another over their careers, but then you've made network relationships with them, and it can carry over because eye care is very open. And so I can say that was a very significant part of like the journey to relationships building with industry. And I think that when it comes to industry, one of the things I do work quite a lot with the industry, especially in the MIG space or the glaucoma pharmaceutical space. And one of the things that I know that is really important is just making an effort to make that connection. Because I remember doing I did a talk on industry relationships and how to navigate them. And I did a little bit of background research, went to some of my industry connections, asking some questions. And one of the things that was very commonly reported is that industry was saying, that people need to let them know of their interest. And sometimes people might see people, KOLs, and people who are either speaking or chosen to speak or participate in certain activities, and wonder how that happened. Well, it definitely happened where there was some kind of dialogue of, I'm interested in participating or collaborating with you, because that's something for me, when, like I said, when it comes to educating, it's exciting. And when it comes to things like research, it's exciting. And when it comes to working with industry, it's exciting. And why, the reason why it's so, for me, exciting working with industry is that you can take a product, you can utilize it, and in the clinic setting, analyze it, put it on your clinician and scientist hat, and say how this works well and how it might not work so well, or how do I figure out what patient selection it's important for. And then I can go to the company and I can dialogue with them and let them know what's working well. And I also can dialogue on what's not working so well. I think that that honesty is really important, because it's not about just telling them what they want to hear. It's about how to have the best product. And sometimes it's that constructive criticism that allows them to make better products. And then here you are with one voice, but being able to affect so many because of the collaboration that you've shared. And so I have really, valued my relationship with industry, and I take it very highly, the feeling of being able to make an impact with them. And so that's why I continue to let people know when there are things that I think are good and things I think could be better. I'm not shy about articulating those things, because I know what the value carries.
Oh, absolutely. We don't want yes advisors, right? We want people to tell us the truth for sure. How about you, Naveen? Can I put Connie on the spot? Can you think of something that happened just because
No,
of the
when you
COVID?
say to be at the right place at the right time, you really have to be out there and engaged to be at the right place at the right time, you know. And it was interesting when I first started, reading and hearing about networking, there's a little bit of sometimes a negative connotation that goes with it. Or when you say networking, people think of it as very surface level, very superficial, sometimes fake, but it's really not. To me, it is generosity, it is connections. It's like Connie was saying, curiosity. And it's not about self promotion at all. It's about helping others and creating that mutually beneficial environment where you can succeed and I can succeed. We can learn from each other. We can help each other. Having been on the industry side too, it's not just working with surgeons and KOLs, but it's sometimes working with my own competitors, working with other industry leaders to drive a category, to grow, I don't know, advanced technology IOLs, or when the refractive market was a little down, we had the Refractive Surgery Council. How do we put our heads together, and what can we do as an industry, even though we are competitors? But as an industry, what can we do to drive the category or the market? So,
Yep. Yep. No, I talked to students at the Ohio State University College of Optometry in their first year. And one of my counsels to them is to show up for everything. Sign up for every club, be part of anything. You never know what's going to happen. And one of my favorite events, what my capstone experience in my career to date was, I was speaking at a school nurse symposium, just talking to school nurses about the importance of eye care. And somebody asked me, do you know anything about these grants that the government's giving out? And she gave me this information. And ultimately, that one asked turned into $500,000 from the Fed. And we were creating the first self-sustaining school-based vision center within a school here in Cincinnati. So, I mean, you just never know when it's going to happen. And you don't know
Yes.
who you're going to pull into that. So just be aware, be cognizant, and show up for everything. That's kind of what my takeaway was as well. Speaking of showing up for everything, we've got a lot of conferences now. Fortunately, we've emerged out of the COVID, kind of isolation years, and now everyone's coming back to these national conferences excited, appreciative, wanting to engage. This is another time when it can be intimidating, especially for young doctors. Connie, your first academy meeting, what was your strategy and what did you learn? And what would you tell the younger professional now as you're going to these large meetings? What are some tips?
Well, I would say the first time I went to the academy meeting, one word would describe it as like overwhelming. It's a huge conference, and if you have not seen something like that before, it can be overwhelming because you almost don't know what your strategy should be. But I think that because it is, there's so much there. There is some importance on placing on what you want to get out of the academy. And so, for example, if you are wanting to get a certain skill set or a certain type of focus, making sure that you are going to be attending that conference, whether it's glaucoma subspecialty day or retina day, if there are certain skills, transfer skills sessions that you might want to sign up for, those are things that you kind of need to pre-think about before you enter, so that you have a strategy of where and when you're going. Now, if you have the opportunity to speak there, that's wonderful, because then you can be working with the people who are going to be on your panel, to be able to just kind of have the opportunity to know them, because now you have a shared experience, and maybe there may be people that you know of that you haven't worked with before, or maybe there are people who are colleagues of yours that you know well. Now it's another time to kind of have another moment of collaborating together or working together that helps to solidify your relationships. Also, if there are certain things that you want to learn about in terms of technology, because the booth can be, or the exhibit hall can be overwhelming. Maybe there are specific things that you want to learn about, and you look ahead of time where they are, map it out so that you can go to those things and know when you're going to go. Because, when you're on the floor, you can see your friend here and your colleague there and kind of get distracted. It's very easy to get distracted. So it's good to kind of have a strategy. And let's say, for example, you've seen a lecture, and there's some time after a lecture is done. Maybe it's a person that you admire, would love to work with, have questions. Instead of feeling shy and saying I can't talk to that person, you'd be surprised how receptive people are when you're coming to them and introducing yourself confidently, and having either a comment or a question. People are very receptive. But the thing is that you just have to have the confidence to get past, feeling like I can or I shouldn't, to just do it. And then you never know where it can go. Because I would tell you that, I've had a number of conversations that have turned into something positive. Like, for example, I remember there was this one talk that I did at AGS that had to do with family history and glaucoma. And after the talk, Tom Bruner from Glaucoma Research Foundation came up to me to talk to me about how he was impressed with the talk, and we connected and exchanged information. And Tom and I have had so many different projects. I became a Glaucoma Research Foundation ambassador, have done all these video projects, webinars, the book that I have, the Glaucoma Guidebook. There's philanthropic aspects of the book with donations to Glaucoma Research Foundation. So there's all of these things that can come out of just going out and allowing those conversations to happen. So I would just advise, get a little bit strategic, know what it is you want to get out of the meeting, map out where you want to go, so you have day by day what the main things are that you want to get done, and then go to the talks if there's anybody that you're interested in meeting. If it's not there, just at the time of the event, you could send an email to someone and say, "Hey, I'm going to be attending this up and coming meeting. Either I heard you're going to be there, or could you be there? I would love to meet you and talk about X, because we have this shared goal or mission." So those are different things that one can do in order to have an effective meeting at the end, feeling like I got out of it something tangible that I can take back, and I feel like I've been enriched with the relationship building that I've started.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, to kind of underscore what you said, I think the most successful people are always the ones that want to help the next guy, So don't ever be afraid of going up to someone that you might have on a pedestal, because they've gotten that success usually by someone before them, and they're willing to and wanting to pay it forward to the younger generation. I agree 100%. Nivine, I've seen you work a room. You know how to do this. When you approach these meetings, What's your strategy? What are you up to?
I'll tell you, of course, it's important to be intentional and have a plan. If there is a particular connection you want to make or a particular project you want to work on, that's wonderful. But I also think a big piece of it for me has been just building relationships, right? uh, doesn't necessarily have to be for something today, but building a relationship that's based on trust and investing time and effort to nurture that relationship, and just being generous with your time, and not always expecting something. I'm not just giving because I need something today, but just building and nurturing those relationships and creating a positive reputation, and making a brand for yourself that you will be there, you'll connect people, you will help them network. I think helps a lot, and I think it's also a very important, in my opinion, key component of successful networking. It starts with just being generous and vulnerable, because you're out there. Sometimes you'll be rejected. Sometimes people don't always have time, but just being out there and being generous with yourself and your time, I feel goes a long, long way.
Yeah, I like it. And once you get further along in your career, like some of us more seasoned individuals, I'm just shocked at how many times people ask, "Hey, do you know anybody that does blah blah blah?" Whatever it is. And that's how the world works. And
Yeah.
have your business cards, right? We're still old school. Give us something we can hold on to when you can flip back and say, "Oh, I did meet someone that this was really a passion of theirs." And I'm amazed by that's how things get done. It's just you chance meeting somewhere, and suddenly that they're going to be your trusted resource, if you build it intentionally. Naveen, I really do like that. I'm going to kind of work that into my next meeting attendance. Speaking of meeting attendance, if you had a list, what would be, and I'm going to come at maybe from the optometry side. Naveen's got her hands in both, and Connie's got the ophthalmology side. But if there's meetings that you would put top on the list, Connie, let's start with you. Which meetings do you say, I want to know where that meeting is because I'm going no matter what?
So I would say that the meetings that I have typically attended um, are usually some of the bigger meetings. Um, there are meetings that I haven't been to yet that I know I would love to go to, um, like the American Academy of Ophthalmology meeting, ASCRS meeting, for me, glaucoma, the American Glaucoma Society meeting, sometimes NMA, sometimes Women in Ophthalmology. I've been to the Envision meeting. Um, all of those are great meetings. Now, in between there's a lot of other meetings too. In the past, I've been to some ARVO meetings. Um, one thing that I will make mention is that not everybody can go to all these meetings. And I remember a time when I went from my training where I was going to everything I could go to. And then as a wife and young mother, it slowed down. And I was feeling like I was left out. And I didn't know how to feel like I was contributing in the same way I was doing before. And I will say that it was, heavy on me. And I went to had the opportunity to go to a meeting that was local. I believe it was an AGS meeting in DC. And I remember Ann Coleman giving a lecture at a Woman in Ophthalmology Symposium. And she talked about how a woman's career path can go a certain trajectory where it starts off really high and then there's a plateau, but then it can go up again. Okay. And just that information that she gave me put another spark in me because one, I felt like I wasn't alone, someone understood, and that there's a second wind, okay, that you can have. And it's okay to not have that opportunity to go to everything. And how sometimes you have certain problems and then you come up with certain solutions. That was a time when I started to go into writing and using video. And I developed my eye glaucoma YouTube channel. And I used those as outlets to be able to share the information I was gaining with MIGS. And I built a reputation, an online presence with those things and social media. And so what I will say to the audience is that there's always a great meeting to go to. And when you have the opportunity to go, you can always make a great effort with it. To be honest, any meeting that you go to, you make the most out of it. But don't feel that you have to go to every meeting, and don't feel that networking is only with in-person relationships. There's plenty of relationships now that are built with in person, but also online, virtual, phone call. And then also, there's also the importance of following up. If you've met someone in person, but you follow up online, social, and then virtual, those are still connections that can have, lasting collaborations and impressions. So that's what I will say about that.
No, I love that. And I think both ophthalmology and optometry allow you to engage at the level that you're prepared to engage, right? So certainly I went through the same time. I went part-time when my kids were born. And then, when I needed to get away from them, I leaned really hard back into my career. I think that I love that. And I think that calling that out specifically on this podcast is important. That there's more than one way to network, and it doesn't have to be physically at a meeting. Thanks for calling that out. Nivine, how about yourself? What's on your list as far as meetings you like to attend?
So I love all of these meetings. I mean, whether it's a big academy meeting, ACOS, ARVO, Hawaiian Eye, they're all wonderful. The mentorship piece and the networking piece, I think, can happen at all of these meetings, but maybe in a smaller groups type of setting. Like when I go to Academy, it is still to this day, even though I've been to probably 18 of them, it is still overwhelming. I still need a map to find my way around. But there are some groups and there are some circles that, I make sure that I attend. If Women in Ophthalmology has a little get together at Academy, or there are other groups that I've seen impact, particularly surgeons, and I'll put a plug for Zaina here. Yes, the Young Eye Surgeon Group, Real World Ophthalmology. There are some smaller meetings within the meetings, if you will, and I think that's where a lot of the connections and a lot of the meaningful networking happens. And I can't agree more with what Connie said about following up and maintaining a connection, because it's nice to be with everybody in a big cocktail party, but I think the connection happens with the follow-up emails, with the phone calls and such.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's not just handing a business card out. You're right. It's the continual uh, care and feeding, if you will, of that network that I think is important.
I want to
And
say one thing, since this is about women and
yep.
women with vision. I think we also have to promote inclusivity in networking, because I mean, there are gender differences and there are ethnic differences when it comes to networking dynamics. So I think as women or minorities, there are additional hurdles that we face, unconscious bias and societal expectations and such. And I think as leaders in the space, it's important to promote inclusivity and make sure that we have forums and platforms for women and for minorities to be able to network and connect as well.
Amen. And to feel comfortable doing so. I agree. So as an optometrist, and I would be remiss as a sitting board member of the American Optometric Association, optometry's meeting is truly a place to re-energize every year, and that's top on my list. But to your point, I'm also past president of the Ohio Optometric Association, and certainly the state meetings as well as even local society meetings are where a lot of benefit can be found. Boy, you want to talk if you need help with something. It's not someone in California and I'm in Ohio. It's literally someone from two neighborhoods over. If you have trouble with billing and coding and you want to know what's going on with the particular insurance carrier in Cincinnati, you'll have those resources and opportunities. So certainly at your state level and your local level, don't forget to network in those environments. And I'll speak from optometry's point of view. It's crazy. We should be competitors, but I've never met a more collegial group of people that want to help each other succeed. People don't hide secrets. They want to share their experiences. And all you have to do is ask, and there's just a wealth of information there. Nivine, your comments just now were kind of teeing up just perfectly for my next question. So, we've talked about being part of professional groups is another great way to build a network like the American Optometric Association. But Nivine, as a longtime member and president-elect now of OWL, how has that participation in that organization benefited you or other women? Certainly what you were just talking about, I think, was a good launching point, but how has that benefited you?
Gosh, first and foremost, some amazing friendships. I'll just give you an example. When I was entertaining the big jump from industry, which is all I've known, all I've done my entire life, to this role at EyeCare Partners, I picked up the phone and called two of my good friends from OWL who are industry veterans. One was Marsha Link, who's also an executive coach, and she just helped me think through the different options, the pros and the cons. Another one was Heather Reddy, who is somebody I've known and worked with for many years and knows the industry really well. And they were just a great, great sounding board. Um, and you do it in an environment where you are comfortable and you know that they love you and they have your best interest in their hearts and minds. And thanks for bringing up OWL, because OWL actually did start 20 years ago as ophthalmic women leaders. And then it was years later that they realized, to advance women, we need men. And so the ophthalmic women leaders became ophthalmic world leaders. And what we say at OWL is obviously your skills and your capabilities will get you the job. But at OWL, we focus on, okay, how do we help you with intentional networking? How do we help you with the leadership skills and the meaningful connections that can help you get promoted, advance your career, but also equally importantly, be happy and make great connections and be more fulfilled in those roles.
I love that. And, I truly just realizing that there's others out there like you, that you can benefit and learn from their experience. As we're getting to the end of the time, I think it's important that we, if we left anything out, what are some other best practices for building a professional network that if you could talk to your younger self, Naveen, like you were earlier, or if we could talk to, new students or recent graduates into our professions, what are some things that you would tell them to do, best practices that maybe we haven't talked about yet? And Naveen, we'll start with you.
Thank you. So I would probably say, and this sounds a little like a cliche, but my biggest advice would be continuous learning and growth. I would encourage all your listeners to be just lifelong learners and continually seek opportunities for their own personal, professional growth. Because by staying curious and by staying interested and adapting to, changes and the expanding knowledge and skills and all of that, you remain relevant and you open doors for networks and for meaningful connections and for meaningful opportunities. It's very much a two-way street.
I couldn't agree with that more. That's like you actually coined the term lifelong learner. I say that all the time. It's so important to be a lifelong learner and know that there's no end to learning something new. And the other thing that I would just mention is to um, be bold. Just try, just don't get so caught up in yourself and in your head and negate an opportunity because you just are worried about what might happen. Because what could happen is so much greater than, the fear that you might have. And if you don't try, it won't go anywhere. people are very receptive. I have always found that when you're genuinely passionate about something, it's kind of contagious, and it's hard for people to say no, or it's hard for people to not want to find a way to help you or get you to the next person that might share your vision. Or so I think that it's important to just try. And then the other thing that we did mention was follow up. So when you make a connection, you need to make it a stronger connection by the follow up, and that's what makes it deeper and can make it turn into other things, or create more networking with how they share their audiences or the people that they know. So, and then one last thing is networking is everywhere. We didn't focus as much on it, but your colleagues are networking. People who are right next to you, where you have these brainstorming ideas. You have something and it just turns into an idea. It could turn into a program or a group or some mission or whatever. But networking is everywhere.
I love it. You two were talking and I was writing notes, and I have two funny things to say. So to Connie, to your point of just try, to quote Wayne Gretzky, or depending on who you're looking at, it could also be Michael Scott from The Office. He says you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, right? So that would be how I would summarize that. And Nivine, to quote either Walt Whitman or Ted Lasso, if you're a Ted Lasso fan, is to be curious and not judgmental, right? And I think those are, if I've learned anything from reading and or watching television, those are two quotes that have kind of stuck
And be
with me.
yourself, be authentic.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Connie and Nivine, thank you so much for taking time out of your evenings to sit down and chat. I always get a little smarter when I have conversations with colleagues such as yourselves. So thanks for enlightening me. And I hope the listeners are taking away some pearls. And look us up at the next meeting when we're walking around. I know our travel schedules are busy. So if you're in the eye care business and you're at one of these large meetings, certainly walk up to any of us, and I'm sure we'd love to sit and have a conversation with you. So thanks again for such a wonderful time tonight.
Thank you. I enjoyed myself. I also learned a lot too from you guys. Thank you.
Likewise, it was a pleasure. Thank you. It was fun.
Good night.